No. Hello. It's Amy of AmyQuilts, AmyQuilts.com, and I am here at my sewing machine shop in Lynchburg, Virginia, also known as So Simple of Lynchburg. And it has been a hot minute since I have done a live video with quilting. So you'll have to forgive me as I get set up. I really would prefer to do this in a horizontal orientation. I'll have to play around with this again. Like I said, it's been a while since I have done that. Don't you love my little Shinobi machine over there? Isn't it cute? So let me try to get this set up where it's not going to be in the way of my quilt and you guys can actually see something. So you can see from the video, I am using a Janome. This happens to be the Skyline S7 Anniversary Edition. I've got it set up with my ruler foot. Let's see if I can't get it to focus on there a little bit better. Come on, YouTube, don't let me down. There we go, a little bit better. Anyway, it should get better as we go. And this quilt is called Why Not? It is a really simple quilt, except that it has Y seams in it. And those Y seams happen to create a fabulous little fussy cut look with this border print. I'm just pulling up my bobbin threads. I'll have to do this some other time when I have some time to fiddle with the orientation. Very difficult to get vertical orientation on smartphone and still be able to quilt here. So let's see if I can't get it a little bit better. If I drop it too low, then my quilt is going to keep bumping the phone. If I raise it up too high and then zoom in, you're going to hear every inhale and exhale. So we don't really want to do this. Haven't decided what I want to do in these little cornerstones. They're pretty small, but I do know what I'm doing in my sashing. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm going to go ahead and go across. Oop, there goes my quilt. Go all the way across this first. I haven't been doing any quilting on this in a while, so this is kind of the warm-up stage here. I do want to lower my presser foot a smidge. Let's see if I can zoom in still. There we go. So with free motion, it's really important that you've got the height of your foot nice and low on your project so that the stitches are formed correctly. And if the foot's up too high, the fabric kind of hops underneath the foot and it kind of can make some weird stitch formation. It can shred your thread and that kind of thing. So I just lowered it down a whole whopping 0.5 millimeter. One of the things I love about Janome machines is that the numbers actually mean something. So if I'm moving it down 0.5, it's 0.5 millimeter. And just putting in these little spirals. I have done these spirals before already in some areas, so I know that I can get 3 of them along that blue square and another 3 in the rest of the block, or along the rest of the block. I am a pretty slow quilter when it comes to free motion, which if you're trying to learn from what I'm doing, I think that makes it a little helpful. And then just alternating the rotation of those spirals. And then we're back over here at the next cornerstone. So you can see some that I've already done. And let's see. I got Gigi saying hi. Like I said, it's been a while since I've done a live video here. I'm going to go around. You can see here, it's already gone around this side of the cornerstone. So I'm going to go ahead and go up this way. I probably will not come back and put anything into these cornerstones. It's just 1.5 inches, I think. It doesn't really need it. And then they'll kind of stand up and look happy compared to the sashing. I do have quilt kits available for this quilt. If I don't have them currently on our website, which would be AmyQuilts.com, then I have the fabric I need to cut the kits. I'll have to check on that. It's been a while. So you hear that louder noise of the seam that's underneath here. I'm getting closer to the seam allowance along the edges of the sashing because the seam allowance is pressed towards the sashing. One of the keys when you're learning to do free motion is getting used to the sound that your machine makes so that when it sounds differently than expected, you realize that and you can stop before you have a whole bunch of stuff to unsew, which is never fun. Just kind of fluff this. I'm just going to freehand. I do have my ruler foot on this machine, so I could use a straight ruler, but I am pretty reliable at going straight lines without a ruler. Just freehand. And I am not using a stitch regulator, even though you're hearing my machine speed up and slow down. That's my foot doing that work. I've been doing free motion long before Janome came out with their new stitch regulators. So one thing I have not figured out yet with this design is what I'm going to put in all of these very heavily printed floral areas. They are so pretty and they're pretty busy, so just about anything I do will not show very much. I don't want to make it boring, but there's not much point in being fancy if no one's really going to see it. Let me stop for a minute. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got to put 2 in here. That brings me right up to my inner border. Make sure I'm not stitching on the other part of my quilt there. And just kind of readjusting my quilt. I am using one of Janomi's universal sewing machine tables. So it's a very narrow little table. It's very sturdy, which I love it for that. But I put another table behind it so that I have room for the bulk of the quilt. I used to do a lot of videos here on YouTube, especially free motion quilting with rulers, but it's been a long time since I've had time to do that because now I am a quilt shop owner and Janome dealership. And I'd be amazed how much time that takes away from doing fun videos. You probably wouldn't be amazed, but I'm always amazed. It's like, I want to go sew, I want to quilt. Reposition this hand. I'm getting in a weird angle. You always want to stop and reposition your hands when you need to. It's very hard to keep a nice smooth line if your hands are in an awkward position. And I've already done this portion, so I might as well do a little lap around this block. And I'm going to stop right there because I'm not sure if I want to keep doing this swirl in the inner border here. I probably do, but I probably want to wait until I'm set up to just go all the way around the quilt. So a couple of stitches in place and cut. I do have basting pins in here, Gigi. Um, you just don't see them very often because I've already started quilting a lot of this. And as I go, I take them out. I've always been pretty lucky when it comes to basting my quilts. I don't need a ton of pins, and usually, let's see if I can zoom out a little bit. So there's one pin. The next one's right here. Usually I can put my hand span between them and still get good securing on my quilt projects without having to have a ton of pins. I think some of the reason I'm able to do that is because I heavily starch and press my backing before I layer my quilt, and that just keeps it a lot more sturdy. Let's go ahead and slide up this way. And I keep my quilt kind of bunched up around the machine. No logs here. We're not rolling it and stuffing. We're piling it around the machine. And I'm making sure that I'm only sticking about half the quilt's width under the foot at any given time, under the throat at any given time, which works out great for a quilt this size. I can start basically in the middle and then work from there. So we've recently moved our shop from its former location to here, and now I have hardwood floors, and my little rolling chair wants to roll away from me. And I also have lost my knee lift for my machine. I haven't wanted to steal one from another machine, but I love my knee lift. That way I don't have to worry about putting the foot back down like I just did. So there's that seam allowance. You can hear it kind of wailing. Give it a little better position there. All right. Now, one thing I always try to avoid is pulling the quilt directly towards myself. The machine just doesn't like that. No machine does, because the thread comes out from the back side of the needle, and then the thread has to kind of wrap around the needle, and it just kind of makes a wobbly line, because sometimes the thread goes around the right side of the needle, and sometimes it goes around to the left side of the needle, and then sometimes it will go right underneath the needle, and it will pierce your working thread. Your working thread is that bit of thread that's still in your machine but goes down around your bobbin case each time you make a stitch. And that will cause it to split the thread or break the thread, depending on what kind of thread you're using. So I always try to kind of pull it at an angle. So you guys are off a little bit to the right of my machine. If I drew a line straight out, the line would be coming this way. So this is at a bit of an angle. This would be straight. This is where it currently is. So that way it's consistently coming out one side of the needle, or going around one side of the needle, I should say. And then as far as thread's concerned, I'm using glide thread. It is a tri-lobal polyester thread. I love it. It is great quality. The diameter, the thickness of the thread is a nice stable thickness, so you're not having to adjust your tension. Um, and this is actually a super black fabric. It looks kind of gray and very linty on the camera, just because black shows everything. Ooh, I just saw a comment. Do a little bit of this before I need to readjust it, and then I'll look at the comment. There we go. Uh, well, Gigi, it's a lot of practice, and then I love my Machinger's gloves. They help me grip the quilt. I don't actually have my sew slip mat on the machine, but I often have a sew slip mat. Some people use a similar thing called a Supreme slider. I like the sew slip mat. I think you get a bigger mat for a smaller price. But that really helps me move the quilt around a lot better. And like I said, I pile my quilt around the machine. So I'm only moving the quilt that I'm actually stitching on. I don't have to move all the extra weight, which keeps it a lot easier on my arms and my hands. Let's see, let me double check, make sure I've got my right number of swirls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this one's going to be the last one. I might have to extend that out a little bit. There we go. Quilt's getting up on the camera again. Sorry about that. Go around the square. I'm excited to get this quilt done because I want to hang it up in here. It will be my first really spectacular big quilt in our new place. And the shop is actually got painted light gray walls and black wood trim. So I think this is going to look really nice hanging from the high ceilings. Slow down a little bit. The stitches are getting very small. Just a little bit. There we go. Sorry for that. I hate it when I hit the camera. Sorry. Two more swirls. And this one will be done. This one, I said my quilt's very linty. It's a darn good thing I used a black batting. Can you imagine how linty this would look if I used a white batting? And if you have a quilt that's mostly dark colors, using a black batting is ideal. You won't get all that fuzz and everything. So let me go around there. Up. And I don't worry too much about whether or not they're like perfectly rounded. Is when I come back around with the second pass, it smooths it out. So there's one of those pins. I have a very old video on YouTube somewhere where I actually stitched right into the little round part here of the pin because I was trying to avoid having to take it out. That was a good learning lesson for me. Remember to stop and take out your pins. Don't try to cut it too close. But I love my Janome machines for doing free motion. They just do really well. All right. I was just going to film a short segment and I decided, well, let's try a little live video. So those who are watching, thank you. And if you watch the replay, I'd love a little thumbs up or a comment. Let's take this pin out. I mean, if you're watching live, I'd like a thumbs up or a comment too. Like I said, it's been a while since I've done much on my YouTube channel. I used to do it all the time. I didn't finish telling you about this thread. So, sorry about that. Next time I do this, I'll make sure I can do it horizontally instead of vertically. So this is Glide thread. It is a trilobal polyester machine embroidery thread. And I use it all the time to quilt my quilts. Like I said, it's really consistent in its thickness. There is no lint. It's strong. And it comes in a lot of colors. I think I have like 260 colors here at the shop. Uh, but like I said, the fabric is a super black, but I'm actually using a slightly gray thread. It's called Eclipse. And you can see where I am stitching. I've got a little gray border, and then of course I've got those gray cornerstones. And I thought it would allow my quilting to not completely disappear when seen from a distance. I am really all about the quilting. Man, don't get me wrong, I like doing the piecing, but I love the quilting. Uh, Thank you. So that's one of the beauties of free motion is you can go in whatever direction you want, with the exception of pulling the quilt directly towards you that I talked about earlier. Let's see. I'm going to do these 3 blocks worth of sashing and then call it a night. And I especially like it when I'm kind of going sideways because I have both hands on here. Um, and especially if I'm doing ruler work, which I will be doing ruler work on some of the colored blocks on this quilt, but not in this video tonight. But we're going to see some here in a minute. I do teach 2 classes on Craftsy on free motion quilting with rulers. And I just take my time. Move some of this quilt here that's under the arm. There we go. That's better. There you can see some of that blue curved cross hatching I did. I love curved cross hatching. And each block has a different color square. Well, a couple of them are repeated twice, but changing the color for the top thread to match or closely match the fabric. So this one's got that blue. Look at that. That's so pretty. There we go. Pull my quilt up closer to the machine. A quilt that lays flat, even if you have this table space for it, gets heavier and heavier. So you really want to keep it nice and close to your machine so that you don't have to move as much of it. There's that sound of the seam allowance. And didn't know I was up in that seam allowance and I heard that noise. I'd be like, what is going on? Can't tell you how many times I have accidentally stitched a scrap to the back of a quilt, or worse, a pattern page, because I didn't notice it was making a different noise. It's definitely an argument for keeping your sewing space nice and tidy. I've never figured out how to do that. I'm creative. I cannot be tidy as well. Well, one more sashing strip and I'm calling it a night. So I guess like all good YouTubers do, I should tell you my name's Amy Johnson and my website is AmyQuilts.com. I have 2 classes online with Craftsy.com on quilting with rulers, but on Teachable, which would be AmyQuilts.teachable.com, I have a great class on troubleshooting free motion quilting. So it's not just how to do it, it is something's going wrong, what do I check? And it's got a wealth of information. But I am also a Janome dealer. Our shop is here in Lynchburg, Virginia. My husband, thankfully, is my sewing machine repair tech. We do work on machines other than Janome, especially some old vintage machines. But we also work on Kenmore, Elna, Necky. He does some work on industrial machines as well. And you know what? He didn't think he'd like doing this, but he loves it. I also do live quilting on our shop's Facebook page every Friday. Well, almost every Friday. So if you're enjoying this, you should check it out over on Facebook. It's So Simple, home of AmyQuilts.com. And I'm going to do my little victory lap around this triangle and say thank you for watching. And I'll catch you in the next video. This has been Amy from So Simple of Lynchburg, home to AmyQuilts.com. Good night. Oh, I should show you those blocks. Look at that. Do you see the Y seam in there? Yeah, that was kind of tricky, but turned out really cool. Good night. How do I stop this thing? Oh, okay.